Welcome back. We are going to be looking at lesson 2-3 today. 2-3 is going to be on one-step inequalities again, but this time we're going to be doing multiplication and division. This is where that one rule is just a little bit different than adding equations. So everything with inequalities is exactly the same as equations, just one little tiny rule is different, and this is where we're going to be looking at that. So let's get started. Okay, so here we are at lesson 2-3, and this is inequalities with multiply and divide. So these are still one-step inequalities. We're just looking at one step, and we are going to be using multiplication and division to solve them, and then again, we're going to be graphing them. So here is our rule. So here is our special rule. Special rule for inequalities. This is the only thing that is different between inequalities and solving equations. It's the only difference. Special rule for inequalities. So this is super, super, super important. Special rule for inequalities. If the coefficient of x is negative, if it is negative, when you multiply or divide by a negative, when you multiply or divide by a negative, you must flip the greater than or less than sign. So you have to flip it the other direction if your coefficient of x is negative and you multiply or divide by a negative to both sides. Okay, so here's what this looks like. So let's do one with a positive and let's do one with a negative. So if we have something like 3x is less than 25, and we're going to have, 24. And we're going to have 24 is less than or equal to negative 3x. So we're going to look at two very similar ones. So again, first step is always the algebra wall. And we only have one step here. So these are multiplied, so we have to undo it by division. So we're going to divide by 3 and divide by 3, just like we would do in any old equation. And this one, what we're dividing by, this one's a positive and this one's a positive. So this does not apply because we are not multiplying or dividing by a negative. We are multiplying and dividing by a positive. So therefore, this is just x is less than 8. And we're done. That's it. Just like an equation. Absolutely no different. But on this side over here, this is where the rule applies because our coefficient of x is negative. So we are going to divide by negative 3 and we're going to divide by negative 3. And so because we did this to both sides, we have to flip our sign to go the other direction. So this is our positive 1, so that's x, and this would be negative 8. So we had to flip our sign because what we divided to both sides was negative. So because these are negative, we needed to flip the sign. Only happens when you multiply or divide by a negative number to both sides. Okay, let's look at a couple of other ones. So if we have 2 is less than y divided by negative 3, first things first, algebra wall. We're trying to get y by itself. So when we get y by itself, we have to get rid of the negative 3. Y and negative 3 are divided. Therefore, we need to multiply by negative 3. And whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other side. Now, because what we did to both sides is negative, we then have to flip the sign. So therefore, negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. and y because that becomes 1. And we're done. So another example is what might happen if you have a fraction. So let's say we have negative 1/4 w is less than or equal to negative 5. So algebra wall. Remember that these are multiplied. So how we undo a fraction, we keep it, or I'm sorry, divide a fraction, keep it, change it, rearrange it. So we're going to keep this first one. We're going to change the division to multiplication, and we're going to rearrange it. So we're going to flip it. Now, big thing here, it is negative. You have to take the negative with it. You cannot get rid of the negative. So this is times negative 4/1. And we're going to multiply this side times negative 4/1. Well, here is our 4/4, and there's our 1/1. So those go away. Our negative and negative make it a positive, so that becomes a w. Now, we multiplied by a negative to both sides, so therefore we have to flip this sign. And we get negative 5 times negative 4, which is positive 20. And that's it, we're done. You can plug it back in and check them, but you're going to, the only thing that's gonna work is it's gonna work like an equation. So let's do just 1 or 2 more. So what if I had w/4 is greater than negative 6? And so we have to get w by itself. So therefore, this is w divided by 4. We undo division with multiplication, and we multiply whatever I do to one side, we have to do to the other. So notice that even though this is a negative, we're not dividing both sides by a negative. So therefore, this does not flip the sign. This negative does not affect the sign. It's only what we divide or multiply by both sides that affects the sign. So this would be w is greater than negative 24. We're not flipping the sign because we did not multiply or divide by a negative number. All right. So that's it for this lesson. You're probably going to be graphing these as well, but I think you have graphing down by now. If you have any problems, any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to come see me, and I would be more than happy to help you out with that. So until next time.